IsEmpty is another friendly function in the MDX world. It will help you to retrieve only the null records from your cube. Normally what we do, so we write non-empty or non-space empty. These both functions will help you to exclude the null records while you're fetching the data from the cube, either with respect to the measures or with respect to the dimension attribute. So non-empty function is more works like based on the measures we can filter the null records, whereas the non-space empty will help on the dimension. It works on the dimension attributes where it will exclude the null records from here. Okay, so non-empty function we covered in the class 17. If at all somebody directly coming to the isEmpty function, so I would request to go to the class 17, and also non-space empty we talked about in the class 31. So please go through these two videos, then come to the isEmpty. That will it's easy to understand. Okay, so coming back to the isEmpty, as I mentioned previously, it will help you to exclude the null record. I mean, not exclude. Sorry, if you want to fetch the null records from your cube, then isEmpty is the best person to fetch it. Okay, how to use the isEmpty function? So let me write sample query, the regular drill that we do. Right. So let me take the reseller sales on my columns, and then I'll take product category and subcategory as my dimension attributes. On rows from my AdventureWorks cube. Now I execute this, then I get the all records from cube where it's a reseller sales amount is having the values, and without having the values, I mean both null and non-null records, we get it. Now how does we use this function? So to use that function we need to write the calculated member. First we need to write the calculated member. I'm writing the calculated member. I'll name it, my measure name as isEmpty function as isEmpty, and then so what I do, I'll use the measure. Okay, so now here I add my newly created calculated member on my columns, then execute. So the isEmpty function is actually tell you whether the particular row is empty or not. It will tell more in terms of the true or false. Okay, so that's how you will get the data using the with member. Okay, now if you want to filter this data and you bring only the null records from your data set, okay, what you can do, the trick that you can apply here, you can write if statement, if isEmpty, if the condition is satisfied, it's always true, right? Now instead of true, what I want to say 1. Okay, and if the statement, I mean if that particular row is not satisfied, then it will be false, right? In the false place I use the null. Okay, now I execute this, then there you go. So here wherever we have null rows, it will mark it as a 1. Wherever you have a valid sales value, then it will show as a null. Now the simple trick that I will apply, so here I go non-empty and then open bracket, and here I'll simply put this measure. Okay, now what will happen, wherever you have a null records, right, the non-empty function will exclude those null records. Now you get only the null records which are available in the reseller sales amount for this category and subcategory. Okay, so most of the time we use this function to write the calculated members within the queue or calculated measures. But this function is very handy whenever you want to bring some null records from the queue. That's all about IsEmpty.